So if you're a DIY kind of person, you're working on your own motorcycle or just at home doing certain things in your garage, I want to introduce you to something that you may have seen before, but a better version of it. Now this machine, this little belt grinder, belt sander, whatever you want to call them, it's air driven obviously. You can get the electric ones, but this one's air driven and it's got a 1/2 inch belt on it. You would have seen me using this in some of my videos. It's good, gets into tight little spots. It has a hard edge to work on, like the steel edge that you work on here. So if I'm sanding the frame, for instance, I'm going along, and if it's something it's already got a bit of a curve to it and I'm working on it, it's really hard to get that curve out. It's going to bounce up and down on the actual hard edge. And that's kind of hard for me to explain unless you've used one of these things, but I want to show you the better version of this. This guy. This is made by a company in the US called Eastwood. Now this company has been around for quite a bit of time. They do all sorts of automotive bits and pieces, tools and equipment. So a lot of thought has been put into this, one of which you can probably tell straight away that you're able to change the angle of where the belt sits. So if I'm working on something hard, once again, like the frame, I'm trying to get that frame nice and smooth, so I've welded the hoop on, and all I want to do is try and grind down those welds to make them flush and make them nice and neat. If I'm grinding on that edge there, where my thumb is, then what that's going to do is it's actually going to grind this surface smoother than what it would if I was working on a hard surface. Not only that, but it also gives you the ability to get into tight spaces due to the fact that you can actually put it on an angle. That's not the only angle you can do. As you can see just here, you can actually change that angle to whatever you prefer. So you can call it a belt grinder, a belt sander. It's pretty much the same thing. It's just an air-driven belt sander. It's very similar to a machine that you would have seen me using in a few of my other videos, which is the self-standing belt grinder. Does the same thing, but this is like a handheld version. If you have an air compressor, super handy thing to have. It's got over a 3/4 inch belt, as opposed to the other one which only has a 1/2 inch belt. And it has the ability to get that angle, which is also good, and the ability to change the amount of air that comes in, which is obviously your speed adjustment. So super awesome. They put a lot of thought into it. I want to give you an example as to why it's so handy having this ability rather than having it sit on a hard plate. So let's do that now. So I'll start with this little guy here just to show you what I'm talking about. There's a little bit of a lump, just obviously where I was doing the welding. I jointed here, so you can still see a little bit of the weld where it actually has been ground down, but there's still a little bit of a lump. But I want to get that out, so I'll start with this and then I'll finish off with the other one and just show you what I'm talking about. It's a little bit hard to see what I'm talking about here, but where the actual grinding belt is hitting on the actual weld, it's sort of bouncing a bit, so it's never going to be consistently nice and smooth until you actually get something like this that has that ability. But don't get me wrong, this guy also comes with the platen. The platen is actually the backing plate where the actual belt sits on. This is removable so that you can actually bend it and get that curve. So now that I've got pretty much started with that guy there, I'll finish off with this and the difference that this has compared to obviously the other smaller version. So having the ability to get rid of that platen and actually having the belt being able to be suspended like that gives that nice smooth finish. And if you're working with pipe, tube or anything like this, then that's just a huge advantage when you're trying to get something done and have a nice professional finish. There's some more work I've got to do on this frame here, and I'm going to take this piece out here and put it across here just for the support for the actual seat. So that little belt grinder, air belt grinder, is super handy. This also has that same ability. This is the platen here, and this is obviously when I'm trying to work on some material that I don't want it to be pushing too hard, and then I can just spin this around here and have that sitting hard up against here. But unfortunately you can't just pick this up and start working on your frame, so something that's handheld is so handy. It's just another couple of examples as to why this tool is so unique and so handy. This is the hump that I built, and I've still got to get the sanding obviously inside here to get it nice and neat, and I've had to go at sanding it with the angle grinder. And as you can see, there's some flat areas where I've had to go with the angle grinder, but you're just never going to get into this tight certain corners all the way along here, obviously in there. And that's where this guy here just comes into its own, and you can really get into those nice tight little corners. If you intend on cutting any bracketry off your frame, motorcycle, you're going to put a hoop on the bike, and you want that nice smooth transition. If you're worried about, you know, your welds being ugly and you want to tidy them up so it looks like they were never there, I can totally understand this tool being super useful for those sort of things. It can't do everything, I totally understand that, but it can do a lot of small things on the bike. So if you have tight little spots you want to get into and you want to cut a bracket off and try and get in there with this tool, it'll definitely be able to do that. If you want to sand something that's going to be, you know, quite tight, like this bracket here I'm going to cut off, and then once that's cut off I'm going to run this over there. I could use the grinder, yeah, still does the same sort of thing, just not as neat. I will leave a link in the description to this tool. It's like any of the tools that I have. You don't realize how handy they are until you have them and you just keep finding more and more uses for them. So just out of curiosity, if you had this tool and it was in your garage and you're building a motorcycle, would you find it handy? I'd love to know. Give me a yay or a nay.